scientist in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you,
Hey,
Tulio.
thank
It's
you.
good to be here as ever.
We have an exciting show today. Our guest, Daniel Curran, is in Santa Monica, California, just a little north of where I am, beautiful, sunny California. Welcome to the show, Daniel.
Thank you.
We're going to be having an interesting conversation today about politics, about improving products, about immortality possibly as well. So stay tuned because it's going to get interesting. And as ever, that's what we try to cater. Interesting conversation. People can learn some new things. So let's see what we can learn today. But before we go into the topic today, let's get to know our guest a little bit. Daniel, please tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself. Thank you.
Well, multifaceted. I've been investing the last few years in about 180 startups. So it's called a super angel investor. Been pretty successful, highly ranked in Forbes and Crunchbase and so on, number 4 and number 7. And so I've done a bunch of investments, run technology companies, Western Digital, the hard drive company. I was an executive there, helping with their Silicon Valley units and so on, and founded companies and so on. And the latest one is the one that I'd like to talk about today, which is CustEx, which is going to save the world.
All right. So I know you were also an avid bodyboarder. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Beach life.
Yeah, I live
Tell
right
us-
across, right down the beach in Santa Monica, and just got back from bodyboarding. Huge waves today. Didn't want to leave. I'll be going back tomorrow because the waves will probably be there again.
Very nice. Always exciting to speak to people who are living life to the fullest. All right, so let's talk about CustEx. What's it about? What gave birth to this idea? You've invested in a lot of businesses. I think you've got 18 plus unicorns you've invested in. Must have had a lot of exposure to different products, different offerings. So what triggered creating CustEx? What's it about?
Yeah, CustEx, we've been working on it for quite some time. And the original impetus for it, if you look at the website, there's over to the third tile is a products and services button, which basically is going to index all the products at Amazon.com, AliExpress, and Walmart.com, so that if you want to improve a product, what it does is you put it in a search bar, it pops up the product to confirm, is this the version you want? And then we're basically mathematizing that, putting it in a f of x kind of equation and using AI to, make the vendor improve the product. That's basically what we do. And we've turned that to do that between politicians and voters also. So we're doing both.
It's like R&D analyst in a box, sort of. All right, let's go right into the topic and see what else we can learn. Carlos, please, let's introduce the topic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tulio. And of course, thanks, Daniel, for being with us today. So there's a question that we were going to be answering. The question is, can technology prevent global civil unrest for both political and product issues? So for this, we have our guest has chosen a topic. The topic will be improving products and services for everyone. That's the topic as chosen by our guest today. First question, Daniel, that I have for you is, why did you choose this particular topic, and why did you feel it was relevant for today's day and age? Let's start there, please. Thank you.
Well, I started basically, I was explaining earlier, I started with inferior products and services that I experienced. Like, we're using this application here, and it makes it hard for me to put a CustEx banner in my background, right? So that's an inferior product that shouldn't have been, gone to market and so on. So we have a mechanism where we're going to force the vendor. We're going to collect data from all the customers. We're going to force the vendor to improve that product by enabling perfect competition. And the way we do that is making that data available to everyone and letting all of their competitors know about it. So we enable perfect competition. This could be done between hard products and services. It could be done with your cable company. It could be done between a service that a politician delivers to a voter. And so when a lot of people, they look at the world's problems. They look at environmental, they look at homelessness, they look at, BLM, Stop Asian Hate issues, et cetera, et cetera. They just throw up their hands and say, how are we going to solve this problem? Well, it takes a rocket scientist to do it. I'm an ex-rocket scientist. And so what we do is we've discretized this and put mathematics behind it so that we can collect all of the data in like a love sponge. This is it's a love platform where you put what you want to come into being in the future.
Wow. Thank you so much, Daniel, for elaborating on that part. Okay, let's get it started with the questions. I have my own, but Kim, Tulio, please.
Yeah, my first question is I'd love for you to walk us through like a use case, right? To be fair to StreamYard, they did a pretty good job allowing us to put our logo and our color scheme on here because it's our platform, right? But just curious about a use case. Can you talk to us about, something where a company would come and you would identify some gaps in terms of their offering of capabilities that the system would help them or aid them to identify those gaps and make those course corrections. Can you walk us through maybe one or two cases of examples?
Yeah, sure. Let me go with a common, we have those tiles, we have products and services, which we're going to be opening that section in a few months. And by the way, we are hiring especially front and back end coders. So say we're looking at that third tile of products and services. Say it's a iPhone 11 or something like that, right? So we would say, is this the iPhone version you're talking about? And they say yes. And then we know exactly what they're talking about. We got to pin down exactly what X is in that equation, f of X. So that's the first thing we have to do. Then we ask them in a format that is very TikTokish. We have someone shoot a video that's 5 seconds. They can make it of themselves so that they could become famous as the originator of the CustEx. We call it a CustEx. Or they could make it of the situation or the product. And they can show this is what bugs me about the iPhone or something, like their podcast software as an example, right? They've just recently updated it and it still doesn't work most of the time. Several different problems with it, right? So, those things are irritating to me because I'm a mechanical engineer, had this with hard products and soft products and so on. So what we would do is we would accumulate that. I would say, okay, fix and improve the podcast software so that it remembers everything I put in the queue. I take the time putting it in the queue and have it keep that order and not forget, because there's bugs in it that it apparently forgets. And I know other people have come across this problem. So I would say, improve that basically. Then I would let the VP of consumer insights or product development at the large corporation, we're allied with all the S&P 500, we know who all these people are. So we send that data to them privately, and we CC that we're sending it to Apple, we're sending it to Samsung, we're sending it to HTC and all of those other businesses, so that we're kind of giving them a little nudge and forcing them to get that product fixed and to market, or they're going to lose market share. So that's one case of like a hardware software kind of a combination. Another could be something with like your cable provider, cable internet or something, some improvement that you have that, you want to make sure that, it's higher speed during the business hours, 9 to 5 or something like that. Right. And that would be also similarly made privately available to the consumer insight people at the businesses, but also eventually then with a little lag of a week or so to the public. So when we accumulate all these CustExes, say when we get to a number like say 10,000 and 10,000 people have liked it, we're basically taking a platform like Facebook or Twitter where nothing positive happens in a big way except, basic communication. There is no end goal to those platforms or to TikTok. There is no end result except, you might have entertainment or something. Our platform, it's TikTok meets another company called Qualtrics, which Qualtrics is consumer experience software, which is very limited because it only lets Apple talk to Apple's customers. It doesn't let Apple talk to Samsung's customers. So CustEx is going to be a repository with potential bigger than Facebook or Google, because we're going to own all those customer relationships, which is the main important thing,
So I have a question. I'm going to play a little bit of the devil's advocate here. Hopefully I understand you clearly. So I can see how this is really positive, I suppose, for the consumer, right? That we're going to be heard and the societal pressure but is there the potential for this to actually cause some type of rift, or this like hyper competition where only the big dogs are going to get to play and we're going to just push out the little guys because Apple has the ability to invest in R&D to fix that problem, but this up and coming startup doesn't, right? So, but maybe Apple then can steal that solution, that idea, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we keep this from...
I think she froze. I think the question was, how do we keep it fair?
Yeah, right. Well, both things are going to happen, actually. I'm very experienced with startups, investing in them. I get 180 reports every month, so I have unfair advantage about what works and what doesn't. And this is a mix. I don't think that the startups have to worry about that, except if it's a unique situation where like distribution can crush, startups and so on. But we don't really have to worry about that, because I've been at big companies, and that's why I'm not at big companies anymore. I just start companies that are acquired by big companies, because the big company staff usually don't have that motivation to work fast and get to market. Now, this may change things. This is probably going to disrupt things. In the beginning, they're gonna, maybe not be so favorable, but once they see that we have all the data and all the demands from the market, we're like a global demand platform for everything. And the way we're starting with our MVP is we're starting with just 3 tiles. We've got a red blue tab there for the issues that were in the 2020 campaign. We've got a BLM tab. We're going to eventually have a Stop Asian Hate tab and an environmental tab. And then we'll open the products and services and so on.
All right, so let's see if I am getting this so far, Daniel. So historically, companies have paid big bucks to get users to participate in providing feedback. They've used it for validation purposes of new feature, new functionality, and there's incentives, et cetera, to get those users to participate. In some cases, they've hired even external agencies that do this kind of work, this kind of market research or user research. What I'm hearing is that the platform basically democratizes this whole effort, puts the ownership on the user, gives the user a voice so that they can proactively say, hey, this is what's working, this is not what's not working. And therefore, it's less about the companies trying to get better about their product proactively by making investment, and more about giving the power to the consumer to say, hey, here's where I think you should make an improvement. Is that sort of what this is about?
Yeah,
Empowering the consumer?
We're starting with the low-hanging fruit of improvements of products or services, because that's the easiest thing. Then eventually we're going to have it so that you can freeform just put in whatever X you want, whatever product or service that you want to examine and improve. And we have 3 buttons on our website. We have a CustEx Plus button, which is yellow, which is for an improvement. We have another one that's for a alternative to the existing product or service if you can't wait 6 months for the vendor to improve it. And then we have a review that's the traditional reviews that are out there.
So currently it's curated the way people can participate, but ultimately you want to open it up where it's more freeform. Is that?
Well, it's user generated content. So it's like Facebook or Twitter or something, but we actually have a purpose. We have an end goal that there will be some accountability by a vendor or a politician. This has never been done in any other platform. That's why this is so strange. I liken this to when search engines and the browser came out in the 90s. Once every 10 years, a massive platform comes out to change and disrupt the world. Facebook was probably the last one in 2004 or whatever. And now this is the platform that we're going from a place where over the last couple of years, people have said, and you might ask, why do we go from hard products and services to these other 2 tabs of red and blue and BLM and so on? It's because those have been in the news, and we know people are angry, and we're capitalizing on that and giving them a tool that they can't get anywhere else. And the way we do this is we have solved the problem of being able to save the world. The preposition is that in democracies, if you give people a voice, if they know they go to the CustEx platform and they've had their say and they see it there in the flesh, and they know that it's gotten to the vendor or the politician, they're not going to riot if they've had their say. We think this is much more effective than being out in the streets, protesting, et cetera, which doesn't have, the exact thing. We're basically using data, so that we solve digitally the world's problems, so that we make this a binary thing, and we let the numbers win. The numbers are what the vendors and the politicians, they will ignore those at their peril and lose market share or lose elections.
Daniel, from what I'm hearing, it's very obvious to me that you do want to make a positive impact, to say the least, and a dent in the world. So how do you think that this will be accomplished using CustEx or through CustEx or aided by CustEx, if the problems that you intend to help solve go beyond the geographic boundaries? I'm talking about outside of the United States. So how do you go about having that effect globally? Is there some kind of limitation in terms of the logistics of CustEx, or how do you go about that?
Well, I'd first say we're going to have to tread lightly in non-democracies. And this may be a platform to be used in non-democracies later on, but the initial thrust is in the US, and the red and blue tab that's there and BLM, they have those issues. Those are not, we are a completely neutral platform. We have no agenda one way or the other. All we want to make sure there's no hate speech, and that there are positive CustEx improvements or alternatives that are put there. We have AI filters that when someone is entering those will be flagged, and people will be able to flag things on the platform. When people are registering, we encourage them to have their social media platform there also, because there is a money-making opportunity for all of our voters and our customers at our website also to talk with either the political organization or the vendor in question. So it's taking what Tulio had talked about earlier, where we had the traditional Nielsen type companies or the consultancies that supposedly help with new product development. We're taking a different. We're not saying we're going to replace all those. We are basically just replacing the portion where market research is taken. So we're going to have an infinitely large sample that is not limited. Because right now, a lot of new products, especially, they fail 95% of the time because the product sample is not big enough. And the people that are making those decisions, there's only like 10 people in a large company to make those decisions. And they'll lose hundreds of millions of dollars if a product fails. So that's why we're starting with the low-hanging fruit of existing products. We can load those in. We can, we've got a control X for now. And to answer your question, all of those issues, whether it's environmental or keeping restaurants open, you'll see at our website, all the issues of like the blue, red, and the BLM campaigns, those are the issues that they agreed on. We took it from them, and we're simply putting it there. So this will naturally be solved by those, those kind of constituents, those organizations. We just, all we do is put them up on tiles, make it interesting with a video, and then you'll see all the CustExes, the alternatives, and the reviews that people add in those fun plus buttons. And we've got a very funny mascot. We've got a cat on the front page that you'll notice that it's crawling all over the site, and it's meowing when you hit some of the buttons. So that's something that even TikTok has not done. They do not have like a Geico mascot or anything. They don't have this lizard or whatever it is, right? A gecko, whatever. So we make this fun.
I'm not a cat.
Yeah, we make this fun. So, because I'm a funny guy, I think whenever you're doing any marketing or a commercial, if it's not funny, it should not be hit the market.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I love about this? I can see the value for companies in terms of getting real feedback about their product from real users. And there's truth in the user actually giving that feedback. It's not been filtered or curated by the media, for example. And the same thing with political movements. It's a virtual platform to be heard, and it can't be filtered by, or interpreted in any way by the media. It's the truth. It's what people are actually saying. So I love that. Congratulations for doing that. Kim, I think you had another question.
Yeah, I was just wondering about how you're getting your audience and your users to be diverse. Like, how are you actively avoiding that it's the same type of people using CustEx, so then it's just that maybe potentially a one-sided perspective of what needs to change? How can you go about making this very balanced, diverse, equitable?
Well, we're still ironing out some bugs in the platform, and that's why we're hiring even more. You know, we've had about 100 people to date over the last few years that have contributed to the platform, coding it and so on. And we pivoted with this. It's a TikTok-ish design. It's I say it's TikTok meets a company that the enterprise customers on the the audience may know. It's called Qualtrics, and it's part of SAP. It's only worth about $8 billion because they're not maximizing the way they're doing business. They're just doing a software business. So we combine those things, and so we're not going to market in a big way. We have some secret bombs that we're going to drop soon when the platform is smoothly operating. We know some celebrities, and some of them are into like environmental issues. You could even guess who we might be talking about. And I'm also an ex-environmental and civil engineer, so I thoroughly understand how we need to clamp down on the carbon emissions basically immediately. There's no time to waste. So the tiles, if you go to our design, you go to our tiles, you'll see it's like, hey, the red and blue people and the BLM people and Stop Asian Hate and so on and so forth, they're going to put all the initial issues for us. And so we're catering really to everyone. I mean, people are either red, blue, they might be libertarian or something, but they'll still find issues that they care about under those categories. So, like environmental, for instance, it's under both the red, blue, and the BLM tiles. So you'll find that under both of them. And eventually we will let people enter in their own X, as long as it's, we have to have a judgment call that it's large enough to make a worthwhile data set, basically.
Yeah, and it's open. It's encouraging because Facebook, Twitter, they often get blamed for bias on one side or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you've built it where it's replicable for no matter whether you're left or right. Everybody gets a voice, right? So.
Right.
And the CustEx, I didn't say much about the CustEx. What we do, we've innovated, and you'll see when you're listing a CustEx, we say, who's the responsible party for this? So say if you're going to, we have under the red blue tab, we have like restaurant aid or something like that, right? So it may be some suggestion that you have under that category that will say, who do you want to hold responsible? So it could be like the mayor of LA, Garcetti. It could be, the Biden campaign. It could be the governor of your state. So you could put in who you want to be responsible. And then we're going to track that so that we are basically setting up a duel between one party and the other, which is, that politician or whoever that the leader is versus, their constituents and so on. So it's naturally going to, fit all of these things into buckets that we can turn all of this mess, the spaghetti mess that's on Twitter and Facebook, into a digitized bits of zeros and ones so that it can actually be voted on. And when we have someone put a CustEx, it's kind of like a Twitter. They can't have more than, I think it's like 80 characters, and they can only ask for one thing in a CustEx. They can't, like if they want a purple iPhone, that is one CustEx. If they want a purple iPhone that I can bodyboard with or scuba dive with, that's a second CustEx. That way we can mine this data and keep things separate so that we can build on them. This is how we build large, this is how we put rockets in space. We have to discretize everything, keep track of it, have a responsible party, and then we can get stuff done. That's how we do it. That's how we prevent global civil unrest. This is how it can be used. That's what we put together. We put together the next platform to do all of this. And I don't see anyone else doing this. I get like 300 decks a week as a famous investor. And so I see like what all the entrepreneurs are doing. They think for me, Kim. I don't have to do this, right? It's just like the Democrats and Republicans. They come up with the issues and so on. All we got to do is we just got to give them a tool, because they haven't had a hammer up until this time. The people that have done all of the product development at large corporations, our founding CTO had come from Avery Dennison, and he said it's like a blind man with a cane going around. For them to come out with a new product, they're just like, is it going to work? We don't know. They have absolutely no idea. It's like, why would you do that? They're like driving a car without a steering wheel. So all we're doing is we're just putting in the data, just like all of the, one big investment I made recently was cruise automation, which powers General Motors and so on, right? So this is, they have to have enormous amounts of data for them to not have you drive the car. They need to have cameras seeing everything, right? Every possible thing, every possible crazy thing. So without that data, you can't make a good decision. So that's what we enable. We're doing the same thing.
I know this next question I have is super deep, probably, and I know it's probably much, much more in the future for what you're trying to do. But going back to your idea of political unrest and something a lot more important than the color I prefer for my iPhone, when it comes to having a voice, is there a way that you would be able to eventually tap into places where there's limited freedoms? Let's talk about like China or North Korea or other places where the public isn't even allowed to have access to a tool like yours that would even help, with their voice being heard. Is that something that's even on this radar as we're trying to build this more ideal world?
Yeah, later on it will be. Yeah, we first have to, if this is kind of like the you're in a plane and it encounters turbulence and the oxygen mask, you have to put it on first before you give it to your child. So the child is the example of, how do we go into a place like China or North Korea and so on, and there's varying levels there. And the way that we would go in there is not an antagonistic, it's our way or the highway or anything like that, because we don't have an agenda. We would simply, we would go to, the parties that be, even though people may not like them, and say, we have this tool. Do you want to hear what, do you truly want to, be, if you want to be sustainable, we have this tool where you're basically going to have everything from everyone. It's going to be a very organized way. It's not going to be negative hate comments. It's going to be what they want to see improved. And is that something that you'd want to do? So that would be a starting point, that we would do in countries like that. We wouldn't go in a Uberish kind of way, where if you follow the business case of Uber, where, they had a bribe and sue kind of a business model, basically. They're just like, take market, let's just go in, or bird scooters in Santa Monica, they got thrown out. They basically just said, we're just going to do this. We're not going to ask for permits and so on and so forth. And then we're going to bribe and sue. We're going to bribe the politicians and sue and hold things up and so on. So, that's the business model you could use. But, we want to go with a more positive world where, we ask for corroboration. If we explain the product, who would not want to use this? Now, if you've got really hard-boiled dictators that are completely evil, then, that's where we're going to have to talk to people in, the State Department and people that are much more knowledgeable about how to, bring a positive tool into those environments.
Right. Well, we're coming up on time. We could talk for hours on this. It's a very interesting topic. And to be fair, even like countries like China, they often hear citizens speak about something. I've read something recently. People were complaining about some statue or something, and eventually the government took it down because the people weren't happy with it. So giving people a voice and creating a vehicle where you can hear from them, I think is very, very positive. Carlos, we're up on time. What do you got?
Yeah, just one quick thing, Daniel. I wouldn't want to end today's show without asking you specifically about CustEx as a company. We might have people out there who could be watching the show who might, who knows, potentially want to work for the company, come work for you. What would you say to them as it pertains to CustEx being a great company to work for? What defines CustEx as a company? What is the culture like?
Consistent with Dojo's values, we are a very diverse company. We have, a diverse team. We encourage all points of view. No one is shut down. It's just a platform where, I think it's the best company, and when I'm talking to, candidates right now, I'm like, if you just realize that you're getting in on the ground floor after we've already put this fabulous MVP together, I think it's the absolute best place. I think it's going to be as significant as Google was, an improvement on Yahoo and the others, or the browsers, that, woke me up because I'm from the school that invented the browser, University of Illinois. I think this is the place. If you want to keep your mouth shut and you don't want things to change, then there may not be much interest in CustEx. But if you want to truly be a part of a tool that has cracked the code on how we improve things, and we force change, we don't ask for it politely, we force change. This is what vendors understand. This is what powerful politicians and political organizations understand. And, we know that eventually we're going to have every enterprise and every big political organization as a customer, because we're going to have all the data. And it's going to be shepherded in good hands. It's not, going to be used against the voters or the customer's permission and so on.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Daniel, for elaborating a little on that. Yeah.
It's always encouraging to hear of companies that are putting out products and services that empower people to have more of a voice and to make a change, to make an impact for change when necessary, giving them the opportunity to have a voice. So congratulations for creating it. We'll have to keep tabs and see how it progresses along and learn about some more use cases as time goes by. Stay with us as we go off the air, Daniel, for wrap up. But before we do, tomorrow we don't have a live show. We have a rebroadcast.
Tomorrow, no, we do. We do. Today's Tuesday, Tulio.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Today's Tuesday. What do we got coming up tomorrow?
Yeah,
Thursday we don't have
right
a show.
There. Exactly.
I lose track of time.
Tomorrow we're going to be speaking with Brent Ooster, the president and CEO of Orbuy AGI, and the topic doesn't get any more interesting. It's artificial intelligence and dreaming. So I look forward to this one as well. It should be, as each and every one of our Dojo Live shows, as interesting as ever. So that's what we have right here on Dojo Live, 12 p.m. Pacific. So join us, everyone, and remember, be safe.
See you.
See you soon.